What's up, people? Last time we discussed the law of demand. So, in continuation, today we shall discuss the concept of supply. If the law of demand applies to consumers, the law of supply applies to producers. So, what is supply? It refers to the amount of a given product or service that producers are willing to offer to consumers at a given price level. Confused? Well, if I am Apple Electronics, I am the supplier. The number of phones that I am willing to manufacture to offer to the consumers, that is you, is called as supply. Hope that's clear. Customers pay for iPhones. So if you're willing to pay more for an iPhone, Apple will be willing to manufacture more iPhones. Why? To earn profit. Let's understand this with an example. Here are the prices of iPhones and the quantity supplied. When the price of an iPhone is $100, Apple manufactures 500 phones. As people are willing to pay more, say $120, Apple manufactures even more phones, say 550 phones, to earn more profit. This trend continues where increasing prices indicate higher supply. This takes us to the law of supply. It states, other things remaining constant, higher prices lead to higher quantity being supplied. Simple, if you will pay more, I'll supply more in order to generate a greater profit. So, what are these other things? Well, they are the assumptions underlying the law of supply, or the factors which determine supply. Let's see them one by one. There should be no change in the income of the purchaser or the seller, because if either changes, customers might switch to other brands. There should be no change in the technique of production. This is how cloth was produced in the olden times. Since it took time to make cloth this way, clothes were expensive. But now, this is the new technology to make cloth. Since you can produce more in less time, clothes are cheaper today. There should be no change in transport cost. Earlier, clothes were transported using this. Cheaper, isn't it? But today we use this. Now this is a bit expensive, as petrol or diesel is expensive to fuel these trucks. This adds up to the cost of the cloth and it becomes relatively expensive. The next factor is the cost of production needs to be unchanged. To make an iPhone, the following costs are added to decide the price of the phone. These costs are called as cost of production. If any of these costs change, the cost of the iPhone will change too, thus affecting the supply. The level of supply should remain fixed. So if Apple manufactures 10 million iPhones in August 2020, they should continue doing so in September 2020 as well. This is because if they make 5 million iPhones in September 2020, then this sudden drop in supply will raise the price of an iPhone. Bad idea. There should be no speculation. If sellers believe that the price of an iPhone will increase in the future, they will not sell an iPhone today. They will hold it for the future, thus affecting the supply of iPhone. This in turn will lead to rise in prices of an iPhone today. Another bad idea. The prices of other goods should remain constant. So if prices of iPads rise as compared to iPhones, Apple might shift their production in iPads rather than iPhones to earn more profits. Thus the supply of iPhones is affected in the market and hence their price will be affected too. And the last factor, there should not be any change in the government policies. This is because if policies such as taxes increases, the price of the products will increase, thus affecting the supply. Well guys, these were the factors which affect supply. If we plot the iPhone supply schedule discussed earlier on a graph, we get the supply curve. Do you notice that it slopes upward from left to right? Thus, as the price of an iPhone rises from $100 to $220, the quantity supplied by Apple also increases from 500 to 720 iPhones. The converse is also applicable. Now this may not always hold true, as sometimes the curve may slope backward. Called as the exception to the law of supply, the biggest and the most important exception is labor. Let's take an example to illustrate this. Assume there's a group of workers to whom a wage rate of $5 is offered. If they work for 8 hours a day, they earn an income of $40 in one day. Now, if the wage rate increases to $8 per hour, they will willingly work for more time to earn more income. Their income now is $80 in one day. At the even higher rate, say $12, they will be willing to work for even more hours, say 12 hours, earning $144 per day. Thus, so far the law of supply is being followed. Higher the price, higher is the supply of labor. Now what if we increase the wage rate to $14 per hour? Will they work for more hours? The answer is no. They are already working for 12 hours a day. So they would want to spend the rest of the time for leisure activities such as rest. So they will continue working for 12 hours even at this rate of $14, thus making $168 in one day. Now, if the wage rises even further, say $18 per hour, the workers will in fact start working for lesser hours as they will substitute work with leisure or rest. Thus now, they might work for 10 hours and yet earn $180 per day. A further rise in wages will be further substituted by even more rest and less work. Thus, the supply curve, as you see, will start bending backwards. Thus, labor is the greatest and the most realistic exception to the law of supply. Other factors which have the same effect are expectations about future price. So if a seller expects a rise in the price in the future, he will prefer to reduce his supply in the current time and sell in the future. The next one being rate of interest and savings. When the rate of interest increases, people tend to save more. However, after a certain point of rise in the rate of interest, they may decrease their savings due to high income from the interest. Now, let us come to another important concept, shift in supply. If any of the factors affecting supply, except for price, change, the supply curve shifts to the right or left depending on the change. Let's take an example. One of the factors discussed was cost of production. Say we have an initial supply curve for a BMW car. Now imagine that the price of steel, an important ingredient in manufacturing cars, rises so that producing a car becomes more expensive. Thus, firms will profit less per car, so they are motivated to make fewer cars at a given price, decreasing the quantity supplied. Hence, the supply curve shifts to the left. On the other hand, if the price of steel falls, cars will become cheaper to manufacture. Thus, firms will profit more and hence are motivated to manufacture even more cars, shifting the supply curve to the right. There are other factors responsible for a shift in supply, and they are given here along with their impact. Well guys, this is it from our side. I have also provided notes for the same in the description box. Hope you understood this concept, and if you did, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Peace.